Welcome, and thank you for standing by. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode for the full duration of today's call. I would now like to turn the conference over to Christine Beauregard. Thank you. You may begin.
Thank you, and good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us for our Understanding Your eFCL Submission Requirements webinar, which just happens to coincide with our Understanding Your eFCL Submission Requirements job aid. But before we get to our webinar, let's take care of some administrative matters, and we'll start with some introductions. For those of you I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, I'm Christine Beauregard, the Industrial Security Curriculum Manager here at CDSC, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. Your presenter today is Leslie Whitaker, a Senior DSS Industrial Security Representative out of our Phoenix, Arizona field office. Leslie has over 30 years of industrial security experience and is the person who's actually responsible for coming up with the idea of our job aid and this webinar. We'll meet Leslie in just a moment, but first I would like to introduce you to our producer, Rachel Mojo. Rachel will be working behind the scenes to make sure we stay on track and on time, but she's also going to take a few minutes right now to provide some basic instructions on the tools you'll need to participate in the webinar. So Rachel, it's all yours.
All right, thank you, Christine. If you take a look at your screen, you'll see an icon of 4 arrows pointing outward. If you select this icon, you'll have a larger view of the presentation, helps you see small print. However, be aware that we'll have a couple poll questions. When they pop up, you'll need to select that icon again in order to participate in those poll questions. Next, you're going to see a box at the bottom of your screen. This is a file share pod. It has several PDFs. One contains today's slides, and there are several other documents that Leslie will refer to throughout the presentation. Next, you can see closed captioning. This box displays the audio portion of the presentation as text. In the bottom right, you'll find a notes and announcement box for this webinar, containing the call-in number if your VoIP is disconnected. Next, there is a question and answer box. You are invited to enter questions here during the presentation. If time permits, the presenter will address questions at the end. Yet unanswered questions will be posted on the CDSE website in our archive webinar section. You will have a couple of poll questions. Simply click on the radio button to submit your answers. And at the end of the session, we invite you to stick around and provide us your feedback. You'll find a chat question there, and you can type your answer in the box provided under the question. Okay, this completes our tour of the meeting room. Back to you, Chris.
Okay, thanks, Rachel. All right, remember when I started, I told you that Leslie, our presenter, was responsible for coming up with the idea of our job aid on which this webinar is based. And how she did that is rather unique, so I'd just like to share that with you. Leslie was enrolled in a CDSE course designed specifically for IS reps, in which she had to identify an industrial security problem area and then offer a possible solution to DSS senior leadership. The problem that Leslie identified was that there were numerous inefficiencies in the process of getting a company cleared, all of which caused delays and added costs to processing new facility clearances. Her solution was to come up with an interactive job aid that not only identified what you needed to submit in eFCL, but also provided guidance on how to find the information required to be submitted. Leslie's solution actually became a reality in September of this year when the Understanding Your eFCL Submission Requirements job aid was published. See, your industrial security dreams really can come true if you just try hard enough, so keep on trying, guys. Our webinar today is going to focus on this job aid, or her solution to that problem that she brought up in that class, and it's going to not only assist you to get your company cleared, but also in keeping your company cleared. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce our presenter and one of my favorite DSS people, Leslie Whitaker. Leslie?
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, everyone. Before we take a look at our job aid, let's make sure everyone understands what eFCL is. Since January of 2010, all companies in process for a facility clearance or reporting a change condition have been required to use the Electronic Facility Clearance, eFCL, online application to submit their documents to DSS. This web-based eFCL application is designed around the Certificate Pertaining to Foreign Interest, the SF-328, and requires companies to upload and submit their required information into the system. This information includes the SF-328, a list of key management personnel, referred to as KMP, the DD-441 DoD Security Agreement, and other business documents specific to your legal entity. There are two types of packages you'll be able to create, the initial and change conditions. Initial packages are submitted by all in-process facilities, those facilities being sponsored into the National Industrial Security Program. They're completed only once, and the documents uploaded are then stored within the eFCL system for permanent retention. After the initial package is submitted and subsequently approved by DSS, all other changes regarding your cleared facility are submitted using an eFCL change condition package. Some examples of FCL changes that would require the submission of this package include KMP updates, SF-328 material changes, business structure changes, ownership, address, and name changes. Although our focus today is on the job aid associated with initial eFCL package submissions, the change condition job aid has also been posted to the file share pod and can be used to assist you in submitting change condition packages as well. The business-related documents we'll be discussing today are required for both types of eFCL package submissions. So understanding what needs to be uploaded will help you, regardless of whether you're submitting an initial or a change condition package. Also, as a result of NISPOM Change 2, the Insider Threat Program requirements, which I hope you're all aware of by now, the KMP section within the eFCL submission site was updated in May of 2016 to allow for the appointment of your Insider Threat Program senior official, referred to as the ITPSO. The KMP list now has a checkbox labeled ITPSO, which must be checked to identify who serves in this capacity at your facility. Next slide, Rachel. As we review this job aid today, our focus will be on corporations and limited liability companies, since these two business structures comprise approximately 90% of all companies participating in the NISP. If your business structure is that of a sole proprietorship, partnership, joint venture, or university, the business documents specific to those legal entities can be found on page 2 and 3 of this job aid. Next slide, please. This job aid was released in an attempt to improve the quality and timeliness of eFCL submissions. Typically, initial eFCL package submissions include multiple errors, resulting in lost productivity for industry, as well as for the assigned industrial security representative, the ISR, who must review and unlock the FCL package for required changes. This unnecessary rework adversely impacts industry's ability to meet the 20-day eFCL submission deadline for in-process facilities and leads to delays in processing and approving your eFCL package. This job aid provides guidance to assist you in understanding what you should be looking for within your business documents and how this information is used to identify KMP, required exclusion resolutions, and ownership. We'll discuss some common eFCL submission errors later in the webinar. Next slide, please. Let's just touch briefly on the eFCL review and approval process. Upon receipt of the FCL sponsorship request, the Facilities Clearance Branch, FCB, will conduct a telephonic survey and will provide you with a copy of the FCL Orientation Handbook. You must then submit your eFCL package to DSS within 20 days. Your assigned ISR is available throughout this process to answer any questions you may have regarding the submission process. Your ISR must then validate that your eFCL package includes all of the required information associated with your business structure. For companies that have excluded entities, such as parent organizations, the appropriate documentation and exclusion resolutions for those excluded entities must be added into the eFCL package for the highest cleared or in-process company. Your ISR will then submit your eFCL package to the Business Analysis Unit, the BAU, for a Foreign Ownership Controller Influence Assessment. Your ISR will approve your eFCL package after receiving a favorable assessment from the BAU. You must submit eQuip packages to request clearances for your essential KMP within 45 days, or DSS may take action to discontinue the FCL request. The timeline can be found on page 1 in the job aid. Next slide.
Okay, guys, this brings us to our first poll question of today that you see on your screen. The question is, what percentage of new facilities being sponsored into the NISP are discontinued by the FCB, that's the Facility Clearance Branch, due to failure to meet the required timelines? Is it 5, 15, or 30%? All right, I see the numbers just rolling in here. It looks like 30% has a strong lead in the polls. They're catching up a little bit with 15. I'll give you another second or so to make your decision. Okay, it looks like the majority of us believe it is 30%, and since I don't know the answer, I'm going to turn it back to Leslie.
Chris, the correct answer is 15%. About 15% of all in-process facilities are discontinued and must be responsored by the government contracting activity or the prime contractor, because contractors failed to meet these timelines. So you'll see understanding what needs to be uploaded into your package will assist you in streamlining the submission process and will eliminate unnecessary delays. So let's discuss some of the common submission errors DSS finds when reviewing your eFCL packages. And again, these errors are found not only on initial packages, but on the change condition packages as well. And a complete listing of these common errors can be found on pages 9 through 15 of this job aid. Due to time constraints, I'm only going to focus on a couple of the most common errors we see from industry. So let's begin with the KMP list. About half of the packages we review don't contain the correct KMP. For example, the KMP list often does not include all positions identified on your business documents, generally your bylaws or your operating agreement. If your bylaws indicate that your company is authorized to appoint a president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer, and will have 3 corporate directors, all of these positions must be identified on the KMP list. If the position is identified but is currently vacant, the KMP list must list this position and reflect the current vacancy. Also, in many cases, KMP holds multiple positions. For example, if the same person holds the title of President, Chairman of the Board, and Secretary, all 3 titles should be included for this individual on the KMP list. In addition to the officers, directors, or other senior management officials, the KMP list must reflect who serves as the FSO and the ITPSO. There is no need to list the assistant FSO if you've appointed one on the KMP list, as this is not considered an official KMP position. In some cases, a position is listed on the KMP list, but is not identified in the business documentation. For instance, the KMP list might reflect the position of Director of Human Resources or the Director of Business Development. However, these positions are not identified in the bylaws, and these individuals do not have a significant voting right or control over company matters. We also recommend that you review the personally identifiable information, specifically the Social Security number, on your KMP list prior to submission. Clearance requests with incorrect Social Security numbers can significantly delay the facility clearance processing for new in-process facilities. Also, don't forget to check the FSO and the ITPSO boxes on the electronic KMP list to reflect who holds these positions. Keep in mind that if you are a branch or a division, you only need to list the senior management official and the FSO and the ITPSO on the KMP list. If you've executed an officer director exclusion resolution to formally exclude non-essential KMP from having access to classified information, make sure you identify this exclusion status on the KMP list and upload this exclusion resolution into your eFCL package. Essential KMP, such as Chairman of the Board, President, CEO, and FSO and ITPSO, are required to be cleared to the level of the FCL and are unable to be excluded. We'll review in a few sample business documents today, which should assist you in better identifying KMP and understanding which management officials must be cleared or who can be excluded. Another common error involves the security agreement, the DD441. Approximately 60% of the eFCL packages are returned to industry because the DD441 is improperly executed. The DD441 forms associated with limited liability companies require at least one witness signature, and the certification portion on the bottom of this form should not be executed. This certification section should be completed for corporate entities. All DD441 forms must be countersigned by DSS prior to upload. You must forward 2 original signed 441 forms to your local DSS field office for countersignature, and then one of these forms will be returned to you for file and subsequent uploading into eFCL. Additionally, about 25% of the SF328 forms are improperly executed in that they're not signed by management officials who have the authority to bind the company into contracts. We often see that these SF328 forms have been signed or certified by FSOs, who in most cases are not officers or senior management officials of the company. Please take the time to review all of the common errors identified in the available job aids prior to submitting your eFCL packages. Understanding these common errors will help you avoid them when submitting your package to DSS. Next slide.
All right, it's time for our second poll question. On average, what do you think the number of times an initial eFCL package is unlocked by your DSS IS rep for necessary changes? 1, 2, or 3? Pretty simple. Oh, it's over pretty close except for 1. 2 and 3 are neck to neck. Oh my goodness. I can't wait to see who wins here. I'll give you one more second. Anybody else want to weigh in? All right, we're going to turn it to Leslie to see how many times on average she's unlocking these packages.
You guys almost had it. The correct answer is 3. We're required to unlock initial packages about 3 times, which results in unnecessary delays. So again, reviewing and understanding some of these common errors will help you avoid these unlock actions and will ensure that your package is submitted and approved by DSS in a timely manner. Next slide. Now I'd like to discuss the business documents that you'll need to review and upload into your packages, which will assist both you and DSS in identifying your business structure, your KMP, and your ownership. Pages 2 and 3 of the job aid identify the various legal and business structures established by cleared industry. Although these business types also include sole proprietorships, partnerships, joint ventures, and universities, we're only going to focus on privately or publicly held corporations and limited liability companies during this webinar, since these are the most prevalent legal entities within the NIST. So first, find your business structure in column 1. Column 2 reflects the business documents that must be reviewed and uploaded into eFCL to assist DSS in validating your business structure type. The documents in column 3 will help you and DSS identify the officers, directors, members, managers, and owners associated with your corporation or LLC. And column 4 contains the documents that must be reviewed and uploaded into eFCL to identify your ownership and any parent organizations or tiered entities if you have them. Next slide. So here's the required documentation for all of the business structures. And again, they can be found in page 4 to 8 of the job aid. But again, we're just going to focus on corporations and LLCs for our discussion today. The corporation, privately or publicly held, is the most common type of business structure that we see within the NIST. The publicly held corporation is required to file annual financial reports that are made available to the shareholders and also to the general public. Routinely reviewing these annual reports and company filings, which are typically posted to your corporate website or on your state's corporate commission website, will assist you in identifying any ownership or control changes within your organization that must be reported to DSS. A privately held corporation is one that is not publicly held. In the classic sense, it's owned by a small number of shareholders, such as a family group, who control and manage the corporation's activities. For private corporations, corporate stock ledgers must be uploaded into your eFCL package so we can determine who owns the corporate stock. This, combined with the voting rights identified in the Articles of Incorporation and/or your bylaws, will help us validate who has the ability to make corporate decisions and who must be cleared in conjunction with your facility clearance. Shareholder agreements must be uploaded into eFCL as they help us determine who owns the corporation and what influence or control they have in overseeing the day-to-day operations of the company. So you'll see in this chart the required corporate business documents that must be uploaded into your eFCL package. The business license, fictitious name certificate, and the Articles of Incorporation are all used to validate your corporate name, address, and the date and place of incorporation. The name and address on the uploaded security agreement, again the DD 441, as well as the certificate pertaining to foreign interest, the SF 328, both must match the information contained in the Articles of Incorporation. Corporations are required to file Articles of Incorporation with the state as part of the incorporation process, and they typically adopt bylaws in order to operate. So again, both documents must be uploaded into your eFCL package as they provide us with information regarding your ownership, KMP, legal structure, and voting rights. Generally, Articles of Incorporation include the corporate name, place of birth, number of directors, number of shares of stock, along with information about the rights and preferences of the shares. So let's take a closer look at an example of an Article of Incorporation document for the fictitious Advanced Weapons Corporation. In addition to containing the name and address of the corporation, this document also contains the number of shares authorized and issued by the corporation, and it tells you who owns these shares. The uploaded stock ledger must match the number of issued and outstanding shares identified in this document. The articles also provide you with the number and the identity of the corporate directors. The number and names of the corporate directors identified on the KMP list must match those identified in the Articles of Incorporation. If this information is changed since the initial filing, you'll need to upload amended Articles of Incorporation, amended bylaws, or corporate meeting minutes reflecting these changes. The bylaws of a corporation are generally not filed with the Secretary of State, and thus are not always a matter of public record. But bylaws usually define the rights and obligations of various officers, such as the President, Chief Executive Officer, Vice President, Secretary, or Treasurer, within your corporate structure. This document assists us in determining who needs to be cleared as an essential KMP in conjunction with your facility clearance. So let's review an example of the bylaws for our fictitious Advanced Weapons Corporation. In this example, you'll see that the number of directors shall be not less than 3 nor more than 5, and that the corporation is authorized to appoint a chairman of the board. The officers are identified as President, Vice President, Secretary, and Treasurer. Typically, the annual meeting minutes will identify who holds these authorized officer and director positions and will indicate if any of these positions are currently vacant. The uploaded KMP list in this case would need to include all 4 corporate directors, including the chairman of the board, along with the President, Vice President, Secretary, Treasurer, FSO, and ITPSO. The 5th director position would be listed on your KMP list as vacant. Next slide. Let's talk a bit about limited liability companies. LLCs consist of 1 or more members who own membership interests based on their capital contributions. A member-managed LLC operates like a general partnership. A manager-managed LLC operates more like a corporation, where the members actually delegate some decision authority to 1 or more managers. In analyzing these business structures and determining who needs to be cleared in connection with the FCL, we need to determine who has the power to direct or decide matters affecting performance on classified contracts. If an LLC is part of a corporate family, for example, if 1 or more companies are members of an LLC, the determination to clear or exclude a parent organization will be handled the same as for a corporation. When processing the LLC for an FCL, we need to review the Articles of Organization and the operating agreement to determine who the LLC members and/or managers are. These are the individuals appointed to run the day-to-day affairs of the LLC. The operating agreement will describe the extent in which these members or managers can obligate the LLC. In many states, the LLC is directed by a management board, which functions just like a corporation's board of directors. In these cases, all management board members must be cleared in conjunction with the FCL. So let's take a closer look at the Articles of Organization and Operating Agreement for the fictitious Advanced Weapons LLC. I've combined these two documents into one for ease of review. These business documents help us validate the name and address of the LLC. They also tell us whether the LLC is member or manager managed, and will identify the members and/or managers by name, as well as provide information regarding their capital contributions. Capital contributions, referred to as business units, typically equate to voting rights, and they provide the member or manager with the ability to vote or make decisions on behalf of the LLC. In this case, the Articles of Organization and Operating Agreement reflect that management of the company is vested in 5 designated members who have complete authority and power to manage and control the business of the company. Each member owns a 20% interest of the capital investment and has equal voting rights. These members must all be identified on the KMP list and must be cleared in conjunction with the FCL. Next slide, please.
Okay, it is time for our last and final poll question of this afternoon. And it is, what business documents can be used to verify KMPs? Is it the bylaws, the Articles of Organization, Articles of Incorporation, or all of the above? I'll give you a moment to make your choice. Okay. Well, it seems like everyone's been paying attention, Leslie. What is the correct answer here?
You guys are all subject matter experts now. Yes, the correct answer is all of the above. Each of those documents must be reviewed and uploaded into your eFCL package to assist us in validating the KMP at your facility. There are several available resources to assist you in submitting your initial and change condition packages. The 2 job aids we discussed today, along with the FCL Orientation Handbook, are posted to the file share pod and are available for immediate download. These documents are also available on the dss.mil website in the FSO Toolkit under the Facility Clearance module. The Change Conditions Reporting job aid was published in October of 2016 and provides very detailed guidance on how to report eFCL change conditions. It also includes 2 sample KMP lists, one for corporations and one for LLCs. It's an excellent resource, and I highly recommend that you review it prior to submitting your eFCL packages to DSS. A special thanks to all of the DSS personnel who contributed to creating this change conditions job aid. Keep in mind that in all initial and change condition submissions, they are very unique, and these job aids are meant to serve only as a guide and may not cover all eFCL submission scenarios. These job aids are designed to provide you with a general understanding of the eFCL submission process. Contact your assigned ISR if you have additional questions after reviewing these available resources. So to recap, this webinar covered initial eFCL submission requirements, common eFCL errors, and the various business documents used to identify your legal structure, KMP, and tiered parent entities. We also provided you with a brief overview of the specific documents you're required to review and upload for corporate entities and limited liability companies. So Chris, I'm looking at the time. Looks like we're right at the 30 minutes. Do we have time for any questions?
Sure. We have a couple that have come in, and I think we'll just have time for the one. And that is, do you know if there are any upcoming changes to eFCL that we should expect?
Yes, great question. Yes, there are several updates that are expected in the near future. As I mentioned before, the eFCL Orientation Handbook. This document's in the process of being updated to incorporate NISPOM Change 2 requirements. And then also the eFCL Submission Site User Guide was recently updated, and it will be posted soon to the dss.mil website. And there are some big changes coming in January. A self-inspection certification button is going to be activated within the eFCL system in accordance with NISPOM Change 2. And this will allow contractors to upload their annual self-inspection certifications to DSS. And lastly, we do expect that the National Industrial Security System, the NIST, will launch with initial operating capability in August of 2017. And both the eFCL system as well as the Industrial Security Facilities database will be migrated over to NIST at that time. So ultimately, the entire initial facility clearance process will be automated, which will be really nice. So there are several changes in the works that will impact the eFCL submission process. And I'd recommend that you routinely visit the dss.mil site to keep apprised of these changes as they occur.
Okay, thanks, Leslie. And unfortunately, that is all the time we have. But if you ask a question, we had a couple questions about articles and meeting minutes. If we didn't answer those today live, we will answer those and post those to our webinar archive page on the cdse.edu site. So look for those in the very near future. Before that we end this webinar, there's one last activity I'd like you to help us out with, and that is our feedback survey. You should see some feedback survey boxes appear on your screen. Just follow the prompts and answer the questions, and as Rachel mentioned before, I think number 3 is a chat question where you type in your answer. It should only take you a few minutes as it's very brief, but the information you provide is really invaluable to our continued webinar success. Again, I would like to thank Leslie for not only providing guidance today, but for coming up with creating the job aid and the webinar, and a special thanks to Rachel here at CDSE for making this webinar possible. And I couldn't leave without thanking all of you for taking time to attend today's webinar, for providing your feedback. These webinars really are a great training opportunity, and we're so glad that you continue to take advantage of them. We appreciate you spending part of your day with us, and as the holidays rapidly approach, remember to take time to enjoy the season and to spend time with those that you love. Make today a great one, and remember, don't ever miss an opportunity to learn at lunch. Until next time, thank you all.
That concludes